Deeper and cross over to Filipo Dionigi. He's a senior lecturer of politics and international relations at the University of Bristol. Filipo, thanks so much for joining us on the programme. I want to first of all start off with this trip from the EU's top diplomat, Josep Borell. He's due to hold talks with the Lebanese Prime Minister today in just a few hours' time. Lay out for us what the key sticking points are in these negotiations for a ceasefire with Hezbollah.
So there are basically two stances here. There is the Lebanese stance and the Israeli stance. And the main role of negotiator for now has been in the hands of the United States in the person of Amos Hochstein. The Lebanese stance basically is trying to push for a ceasefire that fundamentally follows the principles that have been set up by UN Security Council Resolution 1701 already in 2006. And the role there is for the UNIFIL peacekeeping mission to basically implement the measures for a ceasefire that would include also the disarmament of Hezbollah, at least in that area that is south of the Litani River, one of the rivers that defines the south of Lebanon, in the southern region of Lebanon. The Israeli side, however, has much greater demands. They want a far stronger resolution, a far stronger ceasefire agreement, according to which they would be able to then continue attack Lebanon whenever they feel or they see or they have any intelligence that tells them that Hezbollah is either transferring its weapon or is either operating militarily all over the territory of Lebanon. That is a request that Lebanon and the Lebanese officials are not accepting for the time being. So my expectation is that the role of Borrell today might be that of trying to smoothen the differences between the Israeli and Lebanese side and try to find a way to facilitate an agreement between the two parties.
Yeah, let's talk about what sort of message he's expected to bring today. He's going to be talking to the Lebanese officials. What do we expect him to say?
But look, I think here is not only about the ceasefire; it's also about the European Union, from a broader perspective. Borrell is at the end of his mandate, and the European Union, for the past year and a half, after the beginning of hostilities in Gaza, after Hamas attack on 7 October 2023, has radically changed what was, up until recently, a relatively neutral and impartial stance towards the Arab-Israeli conflict. And that change of stance and that division between the EU members has further increased the relevance of the European Union as an actor within the region. Borrell is probably trying to rebrand the role of the European Union in this context and try to make the European Union again relevant for the role that it can have in the Middle East at this point, even though it's extremely difficult to bring the European member states to a unified stance towards this conflict at this point. So probably, again, the role of Borrell at this point is that trying of, to sort of make the European Union relevant again in the region after a year of divisions and serious exacerbation of differences between its members.
Let's talk about Amos Hochstein. You mentioned the fact that he is very much leading the US's diplomatic efforts to secure a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. He's expressed a lot of, I would say, cautious optimism this week over a potential deal. What exactly do you think is fueling that positivity for Amos Hochstein?
But honestly, it's difficult to say. The content of the negotiations obviously is secret, is reserved. There is no transparency for this because they don't want the actors obviously to spoil those negotiations by leaking information, right? We saw that Amos Hochstein has been visiting Lebanon for a couple of days. He has spoken with the chair of the parliament, Nabi Berri, who basically negotiates on behalf also of Hezbollah and basically expresses the stances of Hezbollah in that negotiation. The point that came out from those meetings were not very different from what we saw recently regardless. It seems like 1701 and the establishment of a monitoring mechanism in which the UNIFIL peacekeeping forces, probably the United States, probably France will have a role in the monitoring of the implementation of the peacekeeping agreement, will be part of this agreement. But what really the real question mark is not very much on the Lebanese side, which is fairly clear, is more on the Israeli side of the negotiations. We don't know yet whether Israel will be agreeable to these terms, or whether instead it will stick to the request of being able of acting unrestrained over Lebanese territory, which is something that the Lebanese don't accept, simply because they see this as a violation of their sovereignty and their territorial integrity. And I must say this is a fair assessment in that respect.
And of course, Israel continues its airstrikes. We saw yesterday these massive airstrikes on parts of central Beirut. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah fighters and it's killing dozens of civilians in doing that. We've had dozens killed. We've already had several high-profile Hezbollah officials killed as well. What exactly is Israel's goal here?
Well, this is the point. Israel is obviously trying to destroy Hezbollah as much as it can. But with it also, there is a strategy that is producing a lot of suffering and casualties also among the civilian population. There are more than 3,000 victims since the beginning of hostilities. There is 1 million Lebanese displaced, more than 1 million Lebanese displaced within Lebanon, and some of them leaking over to Syria as well. The infrastructural damage is already accounted for billions of dollars. There is a strategy from the Israeli side that is basically trying to create a wedge between the Lebanese public opinion and the role of Hezbollah as a resistance movement fighting against Israel. That's how they portray themselves, at least, right? It's trying to achieve this objective with force, but whether this is something that is going to work or not is actually rather dubious. We are almost a month into the beginning of the ground invasion of Lebanon from the Israeli army, and we still see the capacity of Hezbollah to launch its rocket attacks against Israel. And at the same time, we also see that notwithstanding Hezbollah being decimated in its military and political leadership, is still operating. So we will see whether this actually will bring any result. The security of Israel certainly has not improved since the beginning of this operations.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the next few days bring, especially that meeting between Josep Borell and several Lebanese officials. Filipo Dionigi, thank you so much for joining us on the programme. He's, of course, a senior lecturer of politics and international relations at the University of Bristol. It was really great to get your thoughts there.
Thank you.